In South Africa, far too many women and children are not safe among the people they know and the people they trust in the places where they are supposed to feel safe. And these are some of the sentiments expressed by Police Minister Becky Cele. The question is, why is this the case? What strategies are or are not working, and why? Let's bring in Advocate Brenda Madumise, who is the Director of Wise for Africa, and Reverend June Major, who is the founder of SayHisName. To the both of you, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. June, in 2019-2020, rape cases were common in KwaZulu-Natal, and sexual assault cases were most prevalent in the Western Cape. Most victims are raped in the home by people they know. 12,000 rape cases reported between October to December 2023 alone. An epidemic, a crisis. Why in 2024, with technology, in Bezos, are women and children still not safe?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Iman. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, in our country, we have less than 9% conviction rate. So you've mentioned all those that have been reported. We're not even mentioning those who have not reported. So less than 9% conviction rate. And there's various reasons why this continues and why we have such a low conviction rate. We see if you report at the police stations, for number one, the police themselves are not clued up with gender-based violence, with acts, with the amended acts. And so often they're sending victims away. We see now recently, literally within this month, we've seen reports that they've done a survey of quite a few police stations and court cases, and out of over 289 were struck off the court roll, and it's because of police inefficiency. We have delays in the system. We have delays and postponements when you come to court, and that is because of lost dockets, of advocates being sick, of so many other reasons. Load shedding has a huge impact as well. And so we've seen that this pandemic continues. They come out on bail of 500 Rand. So you rape someone, you get 500 Rand bail. And once again, we are calling for no bail when somebody's been arrested for rape or any sexual offense. So often it is also someone known to us. And again, society comes in there, especially when the person is known to us, whether it's a father, a grandfather, an uncle, a neighbor. We enable and we say, no, it cannot be the person. And we put the blame once again on the victim. And the fact that we're saying that innocent until proven guilty, we are literally saying to the victim that we don't believe you right now, and the court needs to decide when you're telling the truth. But then again, we have a less than 9% conviction rate. So what are we saying? That if you fall in that 90-odd% of no conviction, are you telling to the victims that what happened to you didn't actually happen? So we have such a far way and a long way to go, unfortunately, in our country.
June, there are some complexities involved in what you've just shared with us, and if there's time, I want to circle back to that. But Brenda, I want to, I'll pick up with you as well, Brenda, on the issue around convictions and what happens in court. But I want to go here next. Given that the research shows that the perpetrators are known, and over the last financial year, almost 5,000 suspects were arrested for sexual offences. The police ministry tells us 100 life sentences handed down, 64 20-year plus jail sentences handed down, many other scores between 10 and 19-year sentences handed down. What is your impression of the consequence rate, given also what June's just said, a less than 9% conviction rate?
Good morning, Iman, and thanks for having me. I think a couple of things that I wish to address. With sexual offences cases, rape, what we have been doing as a country and many other jurisdictions is that the nature of these sexual offences are such that the victim or the survivor is not believed. So even if you have a conviction, right? And if you look at those cases, in most times in those cases, the perpetrator did not admit to raping or sexually violating you. He is convicted on circumstantial evidence. And what most victims and survivors want to see justice for themselves is being believed and someone acknowledging that I indeed violated you. That is missing. And that's why you find most victims and survivors not having closure, because what they want at the core of everything else is that all along, all of you thought that I was crazy. I was trying to destroy this man. but this is what happened to me, and I just want that individual to acknowledge that, right? The second thing is around these convictions, because what you are doing is that you want the survivors, the victims themselves, to come before a court process to relieve that trauma, right? So that there can be a conviction, right? A successful one for that. So you've had many victims and survivors putting themselves out there to do so, despite them being trolled, abused again, because that they have taken, right? Because for you to have that conviction, you have to have me as a victim or a survivor to come and relieve my trauma, right? The third thing is around how we go about investigating these kinds of cases, right? They're very complex, right? And I don't think we have the requisite skills, the requisite temperament, the requisite, compassion to deal with sexual offenses cases in this country. So we treat them as a nuisance, because really, if I can get out of them quickly as the police, as the prosecutor, I would have done my job, and we can then give the statistics that we have had so many convictions. But if you look deeper into those cases, there was no compassion. There was no, and you look at the length of time it has taken for the survivor to get to a point where there's a conviction.
Yeah.
I can promise you now, it's not less than 2 years, not less than 3 years. It's 5 years. We've got victims and survivors who are still waiting for DNA processing so that there can be a conviction of a rape. So why you wait for 3 years for an ordeal and a trauma that you suffered, and there's no urgency, there's no swiftness in dealing with it. And I think for me, it's at the center of it that they're not treated with swiftness and they're not given high priority, because you need a victim and survivor to have closure in all of these cases.
So here's the thing, and again, where are the blind spots? Because we will hear from activists and advocates like yourselves who are able to eloquently diagnose the problem, to diagnose where those blind spots are. You'll have a ministry, government officials, amendments to laws that attempt to deal with some of these missing gaps or missing links in the system, and yet South Africa is still experiencing these high rates of domestic violence, targeted specifically. The bulk and the majority are women and children. So what's gone wrong here? We're going to have another Imbizo with the minister going to talk specifically around GBV. What are they missing, June?
So you mentioned the statistics about the convictions, how many life sentences, how many 20 years and 19 and 15 years. And that seems to be the only statistics that gets put out there. The conviction rate and the sentencing are at 8.6%. My issue that I deal with every day, and the people whom I deal with every day, is that 90% that was not convicted. I believe that the way forward is for the minister and Mbizos to focus on that 90%. Look at those who were struck off the court roll, those who received no convictions, and do an analysis, a needs analysis. See why it was struck off the court roll. Was it incomplete investigations? Was it forensics? Look at the reasons, and then work on those issues to improve it, so that, these are the problem areas. This is what we need to strengthen. This is what we need to do, so that we can change the narrative and that we can get 100% conviction rate and work on that. So I truly feel that they're only focusing on that little bit of conviction rate, that success, that small percentage, and they're missing the bigger picture, which is at 90% that receive no conviction. And that, I feel, that is where the problem lies.
June, I mean, it's, again, as you bring those numbers in, it tells, as you say, the real story. And when you look at the numbers in real terms, the numbers of convictions, the length of conviction, again, minimal. Brenda, does it fuel the impunity? Go ahead, do your worst, you're not likely to be punished?
Yeah. So you see, what happens is that everyone is very aware of how long it takes for justice to be meted out, right? And whether there is a willingness also to investigate. So if you look, there are a couple of things, and let me touch on them quickly. We cannot rely on the law alone and solely, right? As you strengthen the criminal justice system, you have to be working on your prevention strategies and interventions as a country, so that you stop these things from happening from the word go, right? We have not put resources and effort in doing that. So all of these things must run parallel. You have laws because you want society to know that if there are transgressions and they're violated, they've got a recourse, right? But that cannot be the only answer that is available to me as a citizen. There must be other things that requires myself and my citizens to behave in a particular way, right? When we know that we have respect for each other, when we know that there are boundaries, when we know that kissing is not a license for you to violate me, that is, there's no consent because I've kissed you. And we understand all those things from the word go, and we spend time and effort and resources drilling down on all of us to know what are the boundaries between ourselves. It will go a long way. Then you continue to strengthen your criminal justice system and ensure that the special units that you have, because remember, in this country we have the FCS, which has the family and sexual offenses units within the SAPS, but you also have sexual offenses courts that should be by now very, very highly specialized but highly resourced because of the nature of cases that they deal with, right? We have not given to the police in the detective section enough resources. We have not trained them in such a way that they understand how sexual offenses manifest themselves and how they treat victims and survivors of sexual violence, rape, and all of that. So, Iman, I think we have said these things many times, right? It requires a concerted effort by all these people who want to be elected on the 29th of April to literally, as they sit and decide to have war rooms on everything else but GBV, that they need to have a war room on understanding why they treat women the way they do, and the discrimination and the injustice that is visited upon women, why is it happening, and how we're going to address it. Because if we don't deal with this male privilege and deal with how patriarchy manifests itself in our lives and daily lives on every day, is that we are going to continue to have this stop and start and patchwork that we have been doing for the many years that we have been doing it. So for me, is that it requires a concerted effort. 29th of April, after we have voted, I want every single political party that finds itself on the table of governing this country, that they're going to give priority to this.
29th of May, let's just make sure. 29th of May is when the elections are happening. But I think the stuff that you're talking about is what June highlighted around understanding why the conviction rates are still so low. What happened with the investigations? You talked about under-resourced detectives, and we can see how massive the caseloads are for each of those investigators, and then the backlogs that we have at the forensic level. June, I want to give you the final word on this, and Brenda talked about men. Policing is central. As we said, the minister's conducting this GBV-focused crime imbizo, and he's going to focus on men as well as some of the things that you're talking about, which is around the quality and credibility of those investigations. But we don't discuss a lot about men. They are the group with the highest murder rate in South Africa, and males younger than 17 are most likely to be killed in the country. They also suffer assault with GBV, attempted murder, common robbery, and common assault. What are these specific trends and in terms of why they are so targeted? And could this be a reason as well that is not focused on, but certainly plays this catalytic role in the high levels of gender-based violence we see in South Africa?
Yes, so I would say his name, I do focus on the men as well and on the boy child. Because unfortunately, society and the way we raise our boys is boys don't cry, tigers don't cry, be a man, toughen up. So they don't express much emotion. And with the result of that, we have toxic masculinity, and they have no way of expressing those feelings in a healthy way, whether it be crying or something. They become very violent and physical, and they fight. And that's a way of expressing, because that's what a man's supposed to do. And so often, so when I even go into prison ministry, there's so many men in prison who have been violated as a boy child, who has been a victim, who was raped, and became a rapist, because that's the way they take the power back. And so we have to focus on the man as well, because the perpetrators are predominantly men, but most of them are also victims. So we have to focus on them to effect change. We need to change the mindset. We need to educate. We need to really start working seriously and not just have these invisos that is just talk shows. We need to put those talk into action. We need to work. And so we need to walk the talk and not just talk the walk, because that's what we tend to do. Wonderful things on paper, but nothing actually gets implemented. And so, yes, the men needs to be focused on. We have the highest rate of men in the suicide, male suicides, the men are the highest. So they suppress their feelings. And again, we are to blame for that as society. And we're raising our boy children to behave in a certain way, and that is acceptable. And that needs to change because it is toxic.
Can I leave it there? Thank you to the both of you. Really appreciate your time this morning and your perspective. Very, very important. And hopefully, again, when the minister is greeted by the media, these are some of the questions that are put to him and his team. Advocate Brenda Madumise, Director at Wise for Africa, and Reverend June Major, the founder of SayHisName.